and all of that. The welding booths are in and installed. Students should be using them in class at this point. So when we get those reports from department heads and or campus leadership telling us that, yes, this stuff is working appropriately as you would expect or we intend, in addition to doing our punch list walks, that's when those items come for your consideration. There are 2 items on here that are not related to the high school project. The Hellas construction was actually the turf replacement that came out of local funds. We budgeted about $650,000. We're going to end up spending about $575,000, $600,000 on it. So it came in a little bit under our original estimate. The reason it's on here, because it has nothing to do with the high school construction, is because we did hold retainage from them. And so by board policy, to release that retainage, you as a board have to accept that as complete before we can release that retainage to them. No one at the district, myself, Coach Reed included, felt comfortable with just writing a $600,000 check without that check and balance. And so they have come, they've addressed all of our concerns. We've played games on the turf at this point. We've had no feedback from any of the coaches, our team or the other, about spots that we needed to go in and address and possibly rework or redo. So we do feel comfortable at this point that that project's been done appropriately and is ready for payment. The other one on the list is Concord Commercial Services. This was for painting work at Wildman. Again, held retainage on this because Concord was doing work across a couple of different campuses in the district. Again, this was out of local funds, and we just didn't feel comfortable, again, writing a $300,000 check without some sort of mechanism to keep us looking over those projects. So they have come back. There were a couple of issues in the gymnasium of some paint that wasn't adhering. They did come back. They've addressed those. And so the painting work within Wildman looks really good. It looks as you would expect. Support Services has checked off on it. We've done our punch walk, and so it is recommended to you tonight for payment on that project as well.
And part of it's just a learning curve on my part.
Yes, sir.
Before it was pretty clear cut that Clyde was the point of contact, and I think you stepped in and now Jacob's here. So who actually is the point of contact for facilities? So
really within the main high school construction project itself, I'm still serving as the point of contact on that project. Pretty much all the other projects, it's Mr. Perry and his team that are running the lead and the point on those.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
That's it.
Any other questions? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve consent agenda item D.
I make that motion. We approve consent item D.
We have a motion by Mr. Rogers, second by Dr. Langley. Is there any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion carries 7-0. Okay, moving on to action items, budget and finance, information item 2018-2019 technology lending grant.
Okay, board, wanted to update you on a pretty cool project that we have going on right now. There was some funding from TEA that was put out there as part of the biennium allotment, and it is for the 2018-2019 technology lending grant. TEA was appropriated about $10 million from the state to go in and sponsor and kick off programs from various districts around the state to provide devices for students who otherwise have low socioeconomic status and may not have those devices or access to the internet when they are away from the school. So Waxahachie ISD applied for it, and we were awarded $100,000 to make this project go. And so just kind of wanted to give you an update where we are and where we are going forward with this project, and really just kind of pat our instructional technology along with our technology department and curriculum departments on the back for all their hard work to get all this going. As I said, it was apportioned as part of the TA budget request. It is open to new projects that provide access to low socioeconomic status students. If your district enrollment was 3,000 or less students, your maximum allotment was $50,000. Enrollment up to 25,000 students, $100,000. And if your district enrollment was over 25,000, you were eligible for up to $150,000 in technology lending grant funds. So we applied for this right around or right before spring break. We got preliminary approval in June, and we finally got final approval in August. Time frame for this from TEA was they wanted all this up and going by May. you can see they missed most of their timelines on that, but we did get final notice. So we will get working on, we had a meeting on Friday to kind of hammer out more of the details and our actual purchase of the devices. So we'll get working on those POs this week and get them going so that we can meet some of our timelines within this presentation. We did receive $100,000 in funding, and so of the devices and the hotspots that we've identified, that's about 190 devices. And so we are exploring the use of some local funds to round that out to an even 200 devices. We're anticipating local fund kicking in about $4,000. That would potentially be out of the technology budget, but that's not a firm at this point. We'll see if technology can support that. If not, we may look at a future request going forward. So we are going to implement a device lending program through the campus library. So the campus library would be that central hub to keep track of the devices that are lent out, where they are, and then when they come back in. We'll begin advertising the availability of devices later on this month, and then hope to open the application to students in October, with devices being checked out in November. We're also going to ensure usage will be monitored to ensure the devices are being used and used appropriately. So if device is just going home to sit at home, that'll be part of the usage policy that we'll request that student return it so that another student in need can actually use that device. If it's being used inappropriately, it is going to go through our software for filtering purposes, but if it's being used inappropriately, we'll also, again, ask that student to return it and let another student in need use it. Priority will be reserved for low socioeconomic status students without the ability to access internet away from the campus. So if you are not a low socioeconomic status student and/or you have quality, reliable internet access away from the school, the priority will not be for you. It will be for those that this grant was meant to target in the first place. Application process will be initiated in Google Forms. Then it'll be ranked and reviewed by the EMAC committee to ensure that the applicants are meeting the requirements of the grant. We anticipate an approval notice with each student going home that will require a physical signature from a parent or guardian to ensure that they understand that their student's responsible for the device as well, and that what the intent of the program is. And then students not using or not using appropriately, again, will be asked to return the device so that we can get it out to someone else who may need it.
Mr. Calden?
Yes, ma'am.
I didn't understand, are they going to have one of those devices, do they have to have their own internet, or are they going to go to Starbucks, or what's?
That's a really great question, and I apologize for skipping through it. So what we're talking about at this point is a Chromebook device, so that would be the computer portion of it, but also giving them a hotspot to go with it.
Okay, that's
so
what I was
the hotspot
thinking.
would be their personal internet connection that they'd be able to use anywhere outside of the district.
Who wrote the grant?
That would be our instructional technology department. That'd be Ashley Sierri, along with curriculum with Ms. Blaylock.
Okay.
Pass on our congratulations. for that.
Absolutely.
Is there any priority as to which grade level you're going to start from top down?
So right now, the original grant application, we were going to roll this out with secondary students. And as we kind of looked at it and looked at what the outside internet requirements have been, at least this far through junior highs, we've requested of TEA that we actually prioritize the high school first, see how many of those 190 or 200 devices are being utilized, and then reprioritize with the junior highs at that point. So we are gonna try to launch all of our devices at the high school, and then kind of take a step back and see which devices aren't being utilized and reallocate those to the junior highs.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Are getting further and further behind. So, and actually at these lower levels, you want them to have the e-readers so the kids who aren't even in our school can read. So we'll be looking for, as this.
That's perfect. Good job.
So yes, that's something that we look forward to, and but hats off to your department, and the more we can get that technology, the more grants like this, it's just.
Yes, ma'am. Debbie Needham and Ashley Sierri and Jeff Robinson were instrumental. Ryan and I just gave them the support they needed to be successful. So we're very pleased of being able to implement this, and very thankful for Megan Mills and the high school library staff for being willing to be the vehicle with which the students will check out these devices. It's a pilot, it's a first time, but this is something that's been on our plate and our technology action plan for a few years to try to get it accomplished, and we appreciate that the state gave us the opportunity to take advantage of a competitive grant.
And we can also make certain that when they come in and we get them in action, we can do a story, one of our own stories. Jenny can, and Ms. Bridges can go out and get some publicity for this. And also that would help our students get to know more that we have this program. And no, this is fabulous.
And I think Ms. Bridges is going to be contacting our broadcast journalism class that's put out some pretty amazing videos as of late to help us do some promotion, planning on a kickoff the first week in October.
Excellent, excellent.
Thank you very much.
Good job.
Thank you, Board.
Okay, item B, curriculum and academics. You doing that one too?
No, sir.
I didn't think so.
Trying to set it up.
I didn't think so.
He's doing all the heavy lifting
Is that gonna
tonight.
be you, Ms. Blaylock? Curriculum and academics?
We're going to delay that to go with staffing.
Okay, so
Yes, it's under personnel as well, and we thought it'd be better to do the personnel
Flip that one.
part.
perfectly fine with that. All right, C, facilities and construction update. Do you win that lottery, Mr. Perry? So we're going to construction update on renovations at curriculum. Is that going to be you, Mr. Collins? You just thought you were sitting down.
Nice try.
So on the Ryan Calden board meeting agenda today, I just wanted to kind of give you an update on the curriculum department. We talked about it a little bit in the workshop, but high school project going well. We're really at the closeout phase. We're going through the punch list. Part of the renovation work that was over at the old CTE behind Coleman at this point has already been opened with DAP School of Choice. So that area was completed by the start of school. Students in there, it looks really good if you haven't been over there and looked at it. All that to say, we did divert some resources out of curriculum to get, as we call it, Section A. That was the School of Choice Challenge Academy. We diverted resources from Section B, the curriculum renovation, to Section A to get that open in time for the start of school. Last week, the very last week before kids returned, still over there getting final paint, final wax, all that. So it worked out in our favor. It was a good decision at the time to do that. That being said, curriculum has kind of been pushed back a little bit in terms of its completion. So we're probably looking at the end of this month before the curriculum renovation is really going to be complete. There will probably still be a little bit of work to be done at the end of this month, or maybe even to the beginning of October. And then it will be furniture time. And so we'll have to be looking at furniture options and what furniture we're going to use to furnish the newly renovated curriculum department. So looking about a 5 to 6 week lead time for that furniture. All in, all done, we're hoping curriculum will be moved in somewhere in that November timeframe. It'd be great if it would be before Thanksgiving, but it will all be dependent on furniture and when we actually get the physical renovations complete over at that building.
Okay, and were those a part of the 2015 bond?
Yes, ma'am.
So it's listed under Coleman or the high school, or what was it supposed to be at that time? Global. The curriculum part is part of the
Yes, ma'am.
$5 million that was appropriated?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Can I just throw something in here that doesn't necessarily have to do with this product?
Yes, sir.
Project, excuse me. Next board meeting, whether it comes from you or Michael or Jacob, do you think we could get a update on the new support services building?
Yes, sir.
That's going in, because I know Melissa hasn't seen it since they've been on the board, and John and Kim. I did walk through it the other day. It's coming along good, but I think everybody needs to be in the loop on it.
Okay.
Just a
Absolutely.
request.
So would your preference be that we set up a time that we'd have tours and
It doesn't matter to me, just as long as we could kind of give everybody a time frame on where they're going and what's going on. I walked it the other day, it looks good, but
yeah, let's,
just so everybody
Yes,
knows.
sir.
I can
We'll
put
have
that out
for
in a
you.
communication to the board. Here's 2 or 3 times that we can, first we'll find out who's interested in going, because I agree, you don't want to vote on something you haven't seen.
We'll get that for you. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. I think item B will be myself and Mr. Schofield. You can have a seat. So Item B is agri-science facility. I know we talked a little bit about it in workshop, and we were kind of hurried a little bit. Mr. Schofield, if you want to help give an update on where we're at and where we're going. I do think we made some headway in the workshop that we had.
We did meet with the city, a lot of people, contractors, city,
Land planner.
land planners, different district administrators, trying to make sure that we put this facility in the optimum location to utilize our existing infrastructure, to utilize our dollars, and get something that would create a good and safe environment for our almost 500 kids in that program. I would assume that we could probably release a map of some proposed spots shortly, not because we're trying to keep them a secret, I just don't have them written down. And the rest of the board was brought up today, up to speed on where it could, the two potential locations for it to go.
Well, you know, and we also have enough time before the next meeting with the city that we may want to say, bring us 3 sites. I mean, would the board prefer that? Bring us, or you want 1 site? I mean, that's,
I think the preliminary site that we're at right now, that we're gonna deal with the land planner, minimizes the district's cost for any kind of infrastructure, which I think is probably one of our goals
Okay.
moving forward, is trying to limit the cost on this thing anywhere that we potentially can without sacrificing quality.
I believe so, I just don't want to speak for, 6 other people.
So
But it looks,
at our next board meeting, we're hoping to bring a more conceptual plan that our land planner has laid out for the entire site. That includes a proposed location for our agri-science facility, because I believe that's what one of our holdups with our contractor getting us a guaranteed maximum price is having an exact location of where it's gonna go.
well, we can't get firm pricing on it until we know where we are. Won't happen.
Is there any other questions or comments moving forward?
Mr. President, so I'd like to take that as marching orders for me to contact those people at the meeting so they understand. We would like to see that Agri-Science Center set on that spot with the advantages and disadvantages, and that it needs to be the primary focus of that meeting.
That is correct, and one of us needs to contact the land planner tomorrow and let them know what the will of the board seemed to be during our discussion of moving forward on
Who's
a
been talking to the land planner? I mean, who's been the?
Mr. Perry?
Mr. Perry? Yes, ma'am. Could you send me that number, text me the number and the person, and I will call him first thing in the morning, and just to reiterate, when we come to that next meeting, our expectation is that we see that site that we had talked about, the optimal site with less cost to the district because of infrastructure, to have a 15-acre agri-science center.
I don't know exactly what the footprint as far as acreage is
Well,
gonna be required. That was
I
one
thought
of
it'd
the,
be kind of proportionate to
that was one of the questions that we were asking our contractor, and they didn't have the answer to that definitively. So we
Okay,
will
well,
get the answer to that
And
moving
that could be
forward.
another question I asked, so we want to make certain there's no more doubt. What size do we want it? What size are you recommending, considering our expectations?
I believe they have the footprint of the square footage of the building. We just don't know how much
Okay.
area outside of the building.
Land planner, location, recommended size. And, anything else?
Anybody have any other questions?
Anybody else?
Just like we said in the workshop, I mean, about the trail, I don't know if you want to have a conversation at the same time, that we're,
As they're working on a comprehensive plan for the entire site, that will be included.
I
That-
just didn't know if you wanted to throw it in at this point or not.
That will be included. Anybody else? Okay, at this time, it is now 7:42. We will
Mr.
go-
President, I wanted to publicly thank the 2 people I know, at least 2 people I know that went to the funeral of our 5th grader, because I know we lose some people, after closed session, so Dr. Kane and Shelley, y'all are the 2 that I know of.
No, I did not go.
Did not go? Okay.
It was Shelley and the principal, I believe.
Yes, sir. Ms.
Okay.
Costed, Ms. Carrie Andrews, the counselor, and then 3 teachers, Jennifer Summers, Anna Holder, and Ms. Ziegler.
Okay,
were
I
all three in
apologize for getting that
attendance.
wrong.
It's okay.
but Thank you.
Well,
That's
I
okay.
was gonna talk about that at the end, but while we're on the subject now,
we're well
I
represented.
could not be more proud of how our district handled this tragic situation. It started with you, Dr. Kane, and you, Shelley. From the beginning to the end, I could not be more proud of how the district was represented and handled this tragic situation. So, thank you very much. At this time, it is now 7:43. We will go into closed session according to section 551.001 of the Texas Education Code.
Is this land planner?
in there with Brad, I just had to go to Coleman today to get a signature on something, to write something else off. But anyway, I was in Brad's office and he was going through resumes and he had somebody who was having a hard time finding anybody he felt like he wanted.
It's now 9:05. We will reconvene back into open session.
We'll find it.
At this time, we'll move to item number 7A. Actually, I'm sorry, 8A, HR report. Mr. Alvin.
Thank you, Mr. President. At this time, you have before you the personnel report presented to you by your superintendent, along with an addendum. At the bottom of that personnel report is a request to add some teaching sections in addition to the 70 sections that have been approved by the board. And that's a English teacher at Coleman Junior High. That's to then separate what was a combined position. And Jeff, can we pull up the? No, the presentation? Yes, sir. Sorry. And so how we got there, wanted to give you an update on the class sizes at the junior high level. And so at Coleman Junior High right now, this is today's numbers. You ultimately have 25 sections where the amount of students per class is 31 or more. So what we've asked for is a former position that was going to be split between Howard and Coleman, and that was a position that was then created by pulling some other positions down. If we add an English section, an English teaching section, so that's 6 sections. If we add a certified English teacher, along with a certified math teacher, then considering all of the others that we've already added, which was a science and a special ed position, along with a current educator on the campus teaching 3 social studies sections that she wasn't previously teaching, that adds 27 sections. So if you're 25 sections with a student-teacher ratio of 31 or more, by adding those 27 sections, we then eradicate the teaching sections on that campus with more than 30 kids. So with the hires that at least we've approved in these staffing positions, there won't be any sections at Coleman with more than 30 students in any one class. At Findlay, as you can see right now, there are no sections over. There is a need for special education, and so there's a current posted special education position on that campus with an emphasis on science. But at this time, there aren't any sections at Findlay Junior High that are over 30 students. And then at Howard, we've then split that ELAR position that was going to be between Coleman and Howard. We're allowing Howard to hire just a generalist teacher, so core subjects 4 to 8, because you're kind of all over the place with a section of math here, 3 sections of science there. And then we also have a English/social studies teacher. So with the total sections added there, looking at the additional moves that each of those would make within the grade level, even though you see 8 sections, yet only 6 sections added, by adding these 6 sections, it would take care of the other 2 because they're in the same period. So ultimately, you wouldn't have any sections at Howard over 31 or more students.
Once we get these positions filled?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
So and Shelley?
And board members, you have a packet that has a yellow tab on the left-hand corner that has today's section numbers and the enrollment numbers with the memorandum on the top. So you can see every single class, the numbers as of today in our student management system for every single section at all junior highs.
Let's give them a section to go over that, because we were, you gave us that very excellent and thorough report, and we were kind of going over that in closed session, so let's give them a chance. This is the one, y'all are looking at that pretty colored one? Oh, this is pretty
So
colored too,
the
okay.
turquoise color, that blue color, those are the sections that are over. And you'll notice, there might be a section with 34 students, and in that same grade level, you'll see one with 9 students and one with 7 students. And it's frustrating. Part of those frustrations come in the form of creating a third junior high this year, having some moves at the counselor level. We own it. Just altogether, we own that we have some inefficient scheduling this year between Coleman, Howard, and Finley. I believe.
So are those counselors new? Like, we hired brand new counselors?
There are new counselors at Howard, new to their position at Coleman, just some new to the district, and one at Howard, brand new to
So we
council.
leveled as, they've already, as of to these numbers, they've leveled as much
They
as
have
you
leveled
think
as
they
far
can
as
be.
they believe they can at this time, balancing all of the extracurricular classes.
There's always those
Mrs.
conflicts.
Kriegel?
Yes, I didn't even think of this in there, but the inclusion classes, are we putting inclusion students in classes with others that make up 30?
That would put us beyond 30, Ms. Kriegel? Are you asking if that's putting us beyond 30?
Well, no, I'm saying, are we making
We are
an
accounting for the
inclusion
inclusion
class, a class with 30?
I mean, we're accounting for the inclusion kids in all of those classes, so we're not, there aren't any phantom students in any of the numbers.
Right.
Yes, ma'am. And so what I know is that we have some inefficiencies, but I genuinely believe we're going to continue to grow. And so the positions we're adding this year, we're going to need into the future. And so we're going to continue to need those sections at the junior high level, and I'm thoroughly convinced that this spring, we'll be able to analyze and make sure they're at the adequate campuses, the correct campuses. We won't be adding a third junior high next year, so we'll have good demographics going into the year, and we'll have a summer. I know that our principals and counselors will be able to jump on scheduling issues and make sure that we efficiently manage the class sizes on the campus with analyzing the electives too.
Mm-hmm. I'd be lying to you if I told you the majority of the time we were in closed session, we weren't talking about class sizes, specifically at Coleman. So these numbers that you're giving us right now and these new positions should take care of this class size issue.
Once hired.
Once hired.
And so, talking to Brad Andrews today, Shelley Blaylock's been talking to Brad Andrews today. I had a certified applicant, really an impressive-looking applicant, reach out to me over the weekend, got that information to Mr. Andrews. Mr. Andrews is interviewing this week. So there are multiple applicants he has to interview for these positions. We know that in September's not always an ideal time to hire, but we're going to bring on the absolute best we can bring to the district, and they will be, as always, on a probationary contract with every incentive in the world to thrive here.
I mean, we don't expect you to fix this tonight, but obviously to know that it is going to be fixed in the future.
And these positions that we're asking you to create, we've already posted. And so we went ahead and posted them last week to be proactive, knowing that if you turn us down for requesting these positions, we can just remove the posting. But presuming that you enable us to fill these positions, we already have a jump on attempting to fill these positions.
I know that there's a couple other trustees that'll probably have something to say as well, and I'll let them give you the information, but I think we're going to be pretty clear on where we're going short-term and where we want to go long-term. I'll let one of them elaborate if they want to, and if not, then I'll go ahead and elaborate. Someone else want to speak?
I want to go ahead and say something. I spent 10 years in a science classroom. 36 kids in a science classroom is nuts. We're getting the money for it. We need to figure out a way to fix it. There's another class with 34 in it. You can't do it. I've done it for a living. You can't do it.
And
I'm very frustrated, to be quite honest with you. This board has never sat here and said, we won't help you find people. Our job is to find people. Our job is to find the money. If we have to cut funding somewhere, if we have to do something, our job is to educate children. So these class numbers need to come. I understand they're not going to get fixed tomorrow. I think it's very poor planning. I'm very aggravated, if you can't tell. It's, we've messed around with this all summer, and it's unacceptable, to be quite honest with you, in our district. So I would assume that we find it, and if we need to sit down and help you, whatever we need to do to help you, we will do. This board is here to support the people in this administration building, and is here to support the teachers in those classrooms. And we're gonna set some guidelines on how many kids need to be in those rooms, and then let's work together to get it done. But this is not gonna work. When those test scores come back, my job doesn't depend on it. I sell insurance for a living and run cows, but there are people much below the pay grade of those in this building that are gonna suffer for it if we don't do what we need to do to get it done right.
If nobody else is gonna say it, I'll say it.
And
Just be prepared that moving forward, long-term, we're gonna be looking at class size ratios at junior high level of probably 28-1 or better. So, when I say long-term, next year, that's something that we're really gonna focus on. And, you know, that we got plenty of time to get that fixed, for sure. And I will say this, the board owns some of this responsibility as well. We do. And whether they want to admit it or not, with the way we did some of the rezoning and allowing some transfers into some campuses that they wouldn't be zoned for, we own that, and we need to own it. But we're partially responsible for it, and we're going to get that cleaned up next year too, to where we're a little bit more firm on where our numbers are and our class sizes are way before school starts in August. But we own part of that responsibility too.
And
okay. And
Ms. Krieger.
I have a question. The class sizes at the high school, could we get a report to be sure that they're all under 30 also? And then also, I'm curious as to where our fifth grade scores are. I mean, our fifth grade class sizes are because they're not mandated with the 22
Fifth
to 1.
grade, I know for certain, we don't have a single class in the district that has more than 25 students.
Okay.
Absolutely definitively, we don't have a single class.
No.
We wouldn't, but we've lived with the board's policy firmly.
Fourth grade.
Yeah, K to 4 is 22 to 1.
Right, sorry.
Waxahachie ISD is 25 to 1 at fifth grade, and we have lived up to that every year I've been here. So as for the high school, I know they have filled every section.
As of last week, and I can get you an official report as of tomorrow morning and confirm again, but as of last week, there was not a single class at Waxahachie High School that was over 30-to-1 ratio in the content areas. Now, an elective such as band that has many kids assigned to it, but in content areas for academics, there was not a section over 30.
And at the junior high, that same ratio applies, or the same focus on core subjects applies. Again, a class like band or athletics, you're going to have more
We
students.
understand electives.
But
And I'd like to say that I
Please.
would personally like to see all of these, everything that can be done to help these teachers that have these extra large classes, that they have the materials they need to teach, because I know that could be a problem too. So let's be sure that we do everything in our power, because y'all, it's about scores. Anymore, I hate to say it, but it's about scores, and I'm very concerned about our scores with these class sizes.
and all I can say on behalf of Ms. Blaylock, Mr. Calden, Mr. Perry too, and our superintendent, is I very much appreciate your direction. I very much appreciate the just forthrightness, and we will do it.
And the board was also clear, as President Autry said, about taking ownership, and has asked me to find out what specifically is in the way. Like you and I had discussed today about having mushy deadlines on when parents can change and understanding they can't, because that can, so I need the list of, here's what you can do to help us, And then administratively, we would deal that. If we need to say, hey, by May 15th, by May 30th, I think the board's going to be flexible on that date, that we make certain it's well publicized. From now on, this is the deadline for transfers. And I think there was kind of a thought there's different transfers, like if you're a teacher's child, if you're living in that kind of gray zone you were talking to me about junior high. Didn't you say that,
Yes, ma'am, the half-mile radius, I believe is what you're referring to. And we continued to receive requests for that even into the first week of school.
have you already cut that off?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Did I understand you correctly that we transport those, because I said, well, I can see that if we don't transport those kids, but did you say we do offer transportation?
We don't transport that, so they're within the half mile
Okay.
so they can walk home.
I apologize, because I thought there were some transfers, didn't you say there were some people we transferred?
Yes, ma'am, when we were discussing, when a class has filled and we've had to tell the family that they could not attend that campus, that if they needed transportation, we told them which campus that was eligible for. Otherwise, we gave them 2 other options typically.
We might would have a bus that we would take one kid to another school, a whole bus on a,
That, yes, ma'am, that was only in elementary school.
So, but we can work towards,
that's gonna be the administrative guidelines, that's the kind of stuff that I shouldn't, try to remember those things, I mean, no one should have to.
That's one of the things the board's gonna do to help you guys, is we're gonna come up with a deadline for transfer requests. And after that,
and in
that way it
regard
gives you a
to,
firm date.
in regard to our typical budget process each year, and to the extent we've not been clear with the board as to how we build the budget each year, we will take ownership to make sure we're transparent with you on how we build the budget, but we begin each March and April, and we have meetings with every campus and every department. We bring the principals in, we'll have special ed in with the campuses, we will have title, our federal grants coordinator in to look at title funds, but we will analyze each campus's request and build essentially a huge map of every campus and every request, and try to analyze then where can we add and what our budget estimate looks like, knowing the priority of the school board to have a ratio, or not a ratio, forgive me, but to have no core class of more than 28 students at the junior high level. Like I said, I very much appreciate that guidance, and we can come up with a plan to live up to that guidance, knowing that it may mean sacrifices in other areas, but appreciating the fact that you're putting the priority in the classroom at the junior high level, an area where when we see our distinguished accolades at the elementary and the high school, we haven't seen those high marks at the junior high, and knowing that the best way to get there is to reduce class sizes. So thank you.
Okay, board, at this time, I'll entertain a motion to approve the HR report as presented.
I move to approve the HR report as presented.
Second. We have a motion by Mr. Schofield, second by Dr. Langley. Is there any other discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. Motion carries 7-0. Number 2, consideration approval of TASB board policy update.
Thank you, Mr. President. At this time, we have TASB Update 111, and it has several legal policies, and the legal policies aren't really policies, they're just restatements of law. But in regard to local policy, BBD, CAA, CJA, DEA, DHE, DI, and FEA. We urge approval, should it be the pleasure of the board. We've brought this to you for a first review. I've not received any questions from you in regard to any specific items, so at this time, we would urge approval of TASB's recommendation, the Texas Association of School Boards recommendation for our local policies.
Any questions for Mr. Alvin?
After we approve, I have one question, just clarification.
Okay.
Doesn't affect the vote.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion at this time.
I'll make a motion that we approve TASB Board Policy Update 111.
Motion by Ms. Starnader, second by Mr. McCutcheon. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. Motion carries 7-0. Go ahead, Dr. Langley.
Yeah, I have a question, Mr. John, on GKA local related to handgun license holders storing a handgun or firearm in a locked vehicle. It says that as it currently is, you can do that as long as it's not loaded. but there's some type of change that can be made.
And that was
Have
not
we
a part of,
requested that?
and that was not a part of TASB's recommendation. It was just a statement,
Right,
ultimately.
right.
that the
It's
board would-
specified here, maybe some steps that need to be taken to revise the district's policy.
So
Are
at
we
this
looking
time,
at
under
those
both
steps?
DH, GKA, ultimately, you can have the weapon in the vehicle, so long as it's out of sight, and there's no prohibition, to that. The only issue is whether it's loaded or not, but even then, it's really only gonna be an issue if there was some other lawful search, of the vehicle, meaning as
Right.
long as it's stored away, in the present law or in the present policy, stored away, unloaded, is acceptable. Stored away, loaded could be a problem, under the present language of the policy. TASB makes no recommendation as to whether to change it. That's simply a pleasure of the board. If the board wanted to, specifically amend, both DH and GKA, the board can, to authorize a stowed away, weapon that's loaded. But that's truly a pleasure of the board, and we can
Okay.
bring that back should the board want to do
Okay,
that in the future.
okay, let's answer my question.
Okay. Item number 3, update regarding implementation of safety and security plan approved by the Board of Trustees. This is a no action item, correct?
Right.
Informational only?
Thank you, Mr. President, and we're pulling up. Oh, it's not there? Okay. There we are, yeah. So. What you approved on August 6th, was our safety and security measures. You approved 13 measures. And so tonight, we just want to give you an update of our progress implementing the items you've approved. So you approved an addition of a second school resource officer. You know, you have Officer Lewis now permanently assigned to Waxahachie High School, and Officer Mickey Figueroa is now rotating among campuses each day. He has a regular office space at Coleman Junior High. You also authorized us then to hire from Waxahachie Police Department and Ellis County Sheriff's Office regular deputies and officers to work part-time shifts. We have implemented that this year each day. We've had officers doing 4-hour shifts throughout the day, and we will be using them as we have events throughout the year.
Can I ask how that's working? Is it good? Is it positive, negative? Helpful?
No, it's been positive. They usually start off in the morning at the high school helping with traffic, and then once they get done with that, they'll come in, give class, and they'll drive around and they've hit other campuses. I think they've been at every campus in the district, just going in and kind of walking through and meeting with the principal and stuff. So I haven't had any negative comments on it, only positive.
Good deal.
Eric, are they coming in marked cars or their personal vehicles, or how they?
They're in squad cars, squad vehicles. So they'll go to the PD and pick up a vehicle for that 4-hour shift. That's what they'll use.
Yeah, my point was, you know, the more visibility, the better.
Right.
And uniform, I assume?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And they've helped us where we've had occasional absences. It's almost worked to cover it like you would think of as a substitute on a specific campus. If we happen to have a security officer that's out that day, we've been able to specifically utilize an off-duty officer to cover that load. So that's been very effective for us as well. We must say thank you to the support we received from the police department and sheriff's office when we opened the high school. Those first 3 days, and we really couldn't have done it without all of Captain Kyle's team and the support of our local law enforcement. They really did a ton of work to make that go as smoothly as it could go, knowing that on that first day of school, we certainly had some backups, but not at all due to the fault of many of the officers that were out there. You approved the implementation of the Marshall Plan. So what we've done thus far this year, 18 key personnel members, and I have to say, key personnel members because their identities are confidential. But 18 key personnel members went and underwent 80 hours, and it says rigorous training, it means it, truly rigorous active shooter training. The board has approved the appointment of these individuals who passed their mental evaluations, their physical evaluations, after the 80 hours of training, passed written examinations. The board has appointed these individuals as marshals. We have at least one marshal at every campus of the district, and we've now gone through the process of making application for appropriate riders with our intergovernmental risk pool so that we will have coverage for each named marshal.
How soon will that be?
I put in all of the information last week and received confirmation from the carrier. We should have confirmation of coverage by the end. I would love for that to be this week, but certainly by the end of next week we will have coverage for all of our marshals.
Is that the last step?
That is the last step to then truly then having the extra part of the marshal, meaning the ability to carry a firearm. That's the only that's the key part of the insurance is covering the appointed marshal, specifically with the ability to carry the firearm and covering them with adequate coverage for the potential use of that firearm. In regard to the Guardian Plan, board has approved appropriate amendments to our board policy and approved appropriate procedures to allow us to have appointed guardians to have possession of firearms on campuses. And so employees with certified handgun licenses or licenses to carry have been given the opportunity to submit a statement of interest. We've received 26 statements of interest. And so ultimately, those volunteers that are selected will have to undergo mental and physical evaluations. And then it's up to the board then to determine who it would consider approving once you have a clear mental and physical evaluation, who you would consider appointing to undergo training, 16 hours of training in the first year before the appointment would be finalized, and then additional training within the year. But it'll be up to the board to confidentially appoint guardians, knowing that each guardian has a fixed cost to the district, and so have to analyze within the budget exactly, how many and what capacity the board confidentially wants to consider appointing guardians, and we will follow the advice of the board, as the board has the authority to approve those serving in that role. In regard to metal detector wands, the board approved metal detector wands at every campus with random screenings to occur throughout the school day and at extracurricular events. The board has approved an appropriate amendment to board policy that will allow random suspicionless searches via the metal detector wands. We have submitted a purchase order for the wands. We don't yet have the wands, but should be receiving them within the next couple of weeks. Within the next couple of weeks. Discipline policy for students and staff who intentionally leave school facilities unsecure. I've quoted the language then directly from our student handbook this year. Students must not open any exterior door to anyone without authorization. This is a Class 3 offense within the Student Code of Conduct, and our staff has been trained regarding this policy as it applies to students, and specifically trained and informed and admonished that the employee themselves could be subject to discipline for failure to follow this policy. Providing crisis counseling for students as needed, including work to identify and provide services for students identified as at risk for violent behavior. We already have now a crisis counselor at the high school. That's her permanent assignment. But 2, we know that Region 11 can train our counselors for free, though that involves travel. Region 10, we're still working to see if we can secure a local option to train our counselors, but we will train our counselors for specific crisis counseling services, all of the counselors in the district. Training staff on security, lockdown, and evacuation procedures utilizing the standard response protocol and standard reunification method approved by the state of Texas. These terms of art specifically come from the training provided by the I Love You Guys Foundation. This is the training that's been approved by the state of Texas and Governor Greg Abbott. John Michael Keys, the founder of the I Love You Guys Foundation, was present in the district on June 6th and again on August 14th. All of the district's principals, assistant principals, counselors, nurses, and security officers attended this training in addition to several other campus employees and district staff. Implementation of a delayed evacuation model to ensure that pulled fire alarms are not false. During our training of all of our principals at the beginning of the year, we instructed our principals going forward that we will not have evacuations due solely to a pulled alarm, and all of our staff have been so trained. Evacuations will only begin in the event of a pulled fire alarm. Employees are to remain alert, to not immediately evacuate, but then to wait and follow clear direction from campus and district, or campus and department administration, meaning central office will make the call as to whether that alarm is such that evacuation should then follow. Working with and training community members to provide visibility and volunteer security, specifically targeting retired law enforcement and veterans. One of the things that was talked about when the board approved the plan was the Watchdog program, but then a push by the board to consider local options. Well, Melissa Cobb, our Director of Partners in Education, has already worked now with Lee Coronado, who came to the board, our sergeant with the Department of Public Safety, and then also O.T. Glidewell with Waxahachie Police Department to discuss plans. We know that DPS already has a state-funded plan to train community members. O.T. Glidewell with the Waxahachie Police Department is willing to either work with us and DPS or just work with us alone on whatever policy and whatever procedure ultimately is crafted by the district. But you have then two very willing partners to help us as we bring community members in to look for areas of concern and areas that could be improved. So it's very nice to have that partnership with both local and state law enforcement. Implementation of teen leadership programs at junior high campuses that work directly with district and security officers and SROs. At this time, we're still in the planning stages there. Our Director of Counseling, Ginger Robinson, has already met with Melissa Cobb and Eric Kyle to discuss implementation of this plan. We don't yet have a formal proposal for the board, but we'll continue to work this fall to craft a program that our students can then work directly with our security and our SROs. Implementation of programs to encourage first responders and law enforcement to be on district campuses. We have informed our Sheriff's Office, our Police Department, and Department of Public Safety of this opportunity to come to campus to utilize regular workstations during their dispatch of regular duties, and we are seeing officers come to the campus. If you see a police car in front of one of our campuses today, you can rest assured there's not an emergency. It's just an officer that's there providing presence. It may be one of our part-time officers that's being paid by the district, but quite often now it's an officer during the dispatch of regular duties that's coming in to work on reports, that's been given office space in our building. The troopers, I was at Clift Elementary last week, and there's a trooper present, just there, just to walk around during lunchtime, was visible in the lunchroom. It was very pleasant to see and interact with him, and that's just a part of the state program to get the troopers on campuses. So we are certainly accommodating that. Implementation of improved programs and policies for parent notification during emergency events. The standard reunification method that's been approved by the state, that's a critical component of that I Love You Guys Foundation training that we received, but also our Public Relations Department, Ms. Jenny Bridges, has prepared an emergency guide for parents to provide details of the reunification process and other important information pertaining to emergency responses. And this is subject to continuous improvement as we work to make sure that we're providing our stakeholders with adequate information in response to crises. And that's, right now, our current progress on the 13 items that you've approved.
When are the campus teachers going to be trained in the I Love You Guys Foundation?
Ultimately, the I Love You Guys Foundation training is the training we received was one intended to train the trainer. And so Eric Kyle went this year to each of the campuses and provided emergency operation planning training to each one of the campuses, specifically referencing the standard reunification method and the standard response protocol. And so while we only had 150 or so employees at the 2 trainings for the I Love You Guys Foundation training, between Eric Kyle's trainings on campus and each of the principals, assistant principals, counselors, and nurses having materials. Each campus now has, I believe, at least 4 sets of materials. I believe we've adequately trained our teachers in both the standard response protocol and standard reunification method. Eric?
That's fine. I mean, that's fine. I just said that's fine.
Okay. Are there any other questions?
Any other questions for Mr. Avachon? Thank you very much.
At this time, and I know the board is now on the track to hear the superintendent's report, but I just would be amiss if I didn't add, we've greatly improved our transparency. We've added video. Folks from home can watch our board meetings, and a person that was critically vital in helping that happen 50 years ago today was born. And so I've just got to say happy birthday to Jeff Robinson.
Mr. Avachon. Stop. I have it in my notes over here before I close. We were going to tell you happy birthday. That's all right. I wasn't going to forget. You're all right. Okay, last on our agenda would be the superintendent update.
Well, because of the updates that the reports I've kind of been getting out and the things we've talked about, this is going to be a really short board update, a superintendent update. So thank you very much.
So while we're on superintendent update, I'll ask Mr. Calder a question. Have we got all of our RFQs back from search firm?
No, sir, at this point, those are not due yet. They are due the 19th. So we anticipate having them next Wednesday.
So could we anticipate, we have a meeting 2 weeks from tonight for Team of 8 training and some goal setting. Could we have that information
Yes, sir,
before
the
that meeting?
anticipation and having it due on the 19th was to have it ready for the board to receive and look at on the 24th and make a selection on the October 9th meeting, I believe, is that regular scheduled board meeting?
October
8th, okay.
Okay, perfect. Don't forget, we have a meeting two weeks from tonight. Yes.
Yeah, for Team of 8.
Yes. And I'll let you guys, administrative staff, know that we're starting our our goal setting in 2 weeks to help you guys be able to be more efficient and better. And again, we own part of that, of why we're in the situation we're in with some class sizes, and we're fixing to get some definitive goals set for you guys to where you guys know exactly where we want to go. And like I said, that's on the board for not doing that earlier. So I got one other thing. So Mr. Robinson, it's not only your birthday today. We have another guy that has a birthday coming up at the end of this week. I won't say how old he is, but I want to tell Dr. Langley, happy birthday coming up at the end of this week.
And you're donating your cake to Central Office staff.
So will we make certain that
enjoyed a piece of it, y'all are interested.
oh, some of us enjoyed pieces of it too, so would you make certain that Central Office knows that?
And with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion by Mr.
Second.
McCutcheon, second by Ms. Kriegel. All in favor? Motion carries 7-0. Thank you very much.